I had a customer bring in their Poulan backpack blower today, and did he tell me the whole truth? No, he did not. And that led to about 10 more minutes of diagnosing. And what's that? Money, because time is money. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning back into Chickanic. I hope everybody's having a great week. Do not go anywhere because today I'm going to save you a little bit of money. We're going to go over how important it is to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But before we jump into today's video, if you're a fan of saving time, money, and frustration while fixing your own small engine equipment while watching in-depth tutorials, you've come to the right place because that's what I do. I upload a couple times a week, and if that sounds interesting, hit that like button, smash that subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, and please leave a comment. I love to read through the comments, and I will reply to all the early commenters. Now, all of these things I'm fixing to tell you is going to save you time, money, and frustration in the long run because your mechanic will know how to diagnose it much faster if you tell one, the truth. What is going on with your unit right now? The reason that you brought it in. Will it not start? Is it surging? Will the battery not charge? Will it not cut under a load? Something. I need to know why you brought it in. Second, I need to know the whole truth. How did it get there? Was it a progressive problem? Did it happen all of a sudden? Did you hit something and now the problem's happening? Or did you notice it start losing power over a period of months? I need to know all these things because depending on the information you give me, it determines which way I'm going to diagnose and how fast it can be done. And third, nothing but the truth. I don't need to know that your wife's brother's son borrowed it, but he went overseas for a while, so it might have sat, but he was going through a divorce, so you don't know if he actually ever used it at all, so I really don't need to know all that. I don't care who broke it, I'm just gonna fix it. So that is all I need, and I can do my job. But I had a customer bring in their Poulan backpack blower today, and did he tell me the whole truth? No, he did not. And that led to about 10 more minutes of diagnosing. And what's that? Money, because time is money. So when they brought their blower in, they said it wouldn't start, that it was running fine before and now just won't start. So that was all I got. First things I always check, I go for gas because gas is usually the culprit in all of these things. Next thing I check is compression. It has great compression. I look inside the piston and cylinder. I take it outside. I try to start it just to make sure that it wasn't flooded. Why didn't I check the spark? Because these always have spark. There's nothing ever wrong with these coils usually, so it's not one of the things that I normally check. It wouldn't hit a lick, so I bring it back in. Next thing I do, I check for fire. And to my surprise, there was none. Now we can't just assume it's the coil. This thing has a very long kill wire and a little on-off switch in the throttle control that could both be the culprit. The only way to check those is to unplug them from the coil and see if there's any spark. If there's no spark then we know that we have a coil issue. Now there's only two ways to remove the kill wires from the ignition module when working on one of these. The first one is to remove the fuel tank, which there's probably a couple bolts on the bottom that would, make that come off really easy. And then we're gonna look back here, there's a black plate that we would remove and get to the ignition module that way and then just unplug it from there. The second way is to disassemble the throttle control handle and unplug it from the actual kill switch itself. I decided to go that way. So I'm going to take the 5 screws out of the throttle control handle and show you what I found. Once you've taken your screws out and opened up your throttle control, you can remove your kill switch. Sometimes it's held in with the 2 little prongs, but since this one splits apart, it just pops right out. You can unplug these 2 terminal ends and make sure that they're not up against anything and just go ahead and check fire. And if you have fire, you know that it's your switch or your kill wires. And if you don't have fire, then you know it's your coil. But check this out. Travel on down here. What is this? There's this massive hole going through the kill wire. It looks like when somebody was in here, they screwed the screw right through it. Then after further inspection, I noticed that somebody has glued the Z-bend of the throttle cable into the end of the trigger. Now, I ain't gotta be Sherlock to know somebody's been in here. So I pick up the phone and I call Mr. So-and-so and I ask him, hey, I was just wondering, has anybody worked on your piece of equipment lately? And then I get the whole truth. Yes, He had been inside of his throttle control when he broke the end off of his trigger and decided to glue it all back together. When he did, he screwed the screw back in through the kill wire and hasn't worked since. That would have been some good information to know. So once the screws removed and I'll throw some electrical tape around that wire, get everything tucked back in its spot, it did have fire and it started first pulls. So that's the fix. Now this ended up being super simple fix, but a lot of times we see this with riders. If you get a rider for super cheap or have one given to you, a lot of times people buy houses and they come with riders and they bring them to the shop and the only information they know is it won't start, probably because it's been sitting for a long time. Well, there might be a reason that it wouldn't start or was left behind or sold so cheap, because the majority of the time when we get ones in like that at the shop, it ends up being a super big repair because we don't know anything about it. We don't know where to even start or where to end with it, because we know that it won't start, so it needs a battery, so it needs carburetor work, so then we find out that it's not charging, so then once we get all that running, then we find out that the transmission might not work, or then we find out that the deck's completely, you know, in shambles. I could do an entire diagnosis on it, but then I'm going to be charging you an hour for a diagnosis on something that you might not even want to fix anyway. So it gets really tough when it comes to stuff that you're not sure about. If you don't have any clue about the equipment, it's sort of leery to bring it into the shop because you might end up spending way more than you want to. So hopefully this video saves you some time, money, and frustration in the future. If you haven't found us on Facebook yet, find us at facebook.com/Chickanic, find us at Instagram at The Real Chickanic, or find us at Chickanic.com where you get your own t-shirts, hoodies, and long sleeve shirts. Thanks, and have a great day. So unless you've been around for a while, you might not know that on top of working full-time at the shop and doing the Chickanic videos, I'm also a pretty big gardener. I have a 40 by 50 plot in my backyard full of raised beds and in-ground gardening. And this summer has been brutal. My garden looks scary. I cannot keep up with watering because it has been so hot lately. But I got a lot of food here, so I'm going to round all this up before we continue. Now, my favorite of all-time tomatoes are yellow Dr. Witchy tomatoes, and they are delicious. They're low in acid, so they're great for anything, especially if you have stomach issues. This is the way to go. It's all pretty much I grow anymore. Is a pretty good haul, I must say, this morning. Just this alone anymore at the store is going to cost you probably 20 bucks.